You're locked into Edge of the Web, powered by Site Strategics and SiteStrategics.com. It's now time for this week's featured guest. We're talking to Steve Forbes, business innovator and founder of Forbes Reinventing America, the Innovation Summit. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Hey, we've reported time and time again about the growth of Indianapolis as a lead tech hub for the country, and next week is a demonstration of that mark. The event Forbes Reinventing America, the Innovation Summit, is coming to Indy this coming Thursday, November 13th, and this event was brought together by a partnership between the Honorable Mike Pence, Governor of Indiana, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, and led by the world-renowned businessman Steve Forbes, and we are very proud to be able to have that very thought leader on the show today, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media, Steve Forbes. Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Doing great, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Thanks so much for carving some time out of your schedule to join us. It's a privilege to have you on the show. You're a Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media, and your magazines have reached an audience of 6 million worldwide. You have laudable successes, and certainly could go into a number of them, but you also have a book that just got released, correct, sir?
I did. I co-authored a book called Money, How the Destruction of the Dollar Threatens the Global Economy and What We Can Do About It. And it makes the point that if we don't get the money right, then the economy is going to be in trouble. And we've certainly seen that in the last 15 years with the Federal Reserve mucking around with the U.S. dollar.
Absolutely. Has
ended up giving us this economy, key part of a reason why we have the worst economic recovery from a sharp downturn in American history. You know, money should be stable in value, just like you have 60 minutes in an hour. You change the number of minutes in the clock each day, it would be quite chaotic. Same thing is true of money. Got to get stable money, and then this economy can get back on track again.
Absolutely. And you certainly have same-minded individuals here on this show. There's a lot that can be readjusted when it comes to money, as well as technology, as well as manufacturing, and pulling that manufacturing back into the states itself. So you're among friends here. That's for darn sure. So Forbes Magazine is hosting the Innovation Summit in Indianapolis on November 13th, and it's one in a series of conferences highlighting the reinvention of various Midwest businesses. To start off, can you tell us what prompted you to develop the entire concept of reinventing America?
Well, there's a tendency among people to focus in terms of innovation on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Absolutely.
And especially the West Coast, the Valley, Silicon Valley. But what gets overlooked is there's a lot happening in the rest of the country. Major moves are being made in the Midwest. That's why we had the conference 7 months ago in Chicago, and we're having it in a few days in Indianapolis. And that is whether it's the renaissance in manufacturing, in part because of the cheap energy we have, but also technological breakthroughs. Whether it's venture capital, there's a lot of that going on in the Indianapolis and in the Midwest. Agriculture, obviously, but pharmaceutical breakthroughs. So there's a lot of excitement going on, and we thought it would be good to focus on something that everyone else seems to be missing.
I love that you're bringing the attention to the Midwest as well, because I've lived on the coast, and I've lived. This is Doug Carr. I've lived all over the place, and one of the things that's fantastic here is the stability. We have a low cost of living. We have a great feeder schools. From colleges. Of course, it's the crossroads of America. So it's easy to get everywhere. But people on the coast aren't. They really aren't aware of that. If you invest in a business here in Indianapolis,
right.
It can last 2.5 times, the startup, death rate, there in the Valley.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the, you touched on one, you can actually afford to buy a place to live.
Right.
That's nice. You have a nice environment, and you've got first-rate institutions of higher learning, including Purdue, where your former governor is now president.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And as you know, Indiana is a state that its credit rating actually improved at a time when everyone else was tanking. And so good fiscal management does set the stage for some good things happening economically.
Absolutely. Do you, Mr. Forbes, do you feel one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today was just your views. I know your views on taxation as a whole, but there seems to be more and more pressure coming from the left to tax the internet, to tax the commerce on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, it seems to me, just my opinion, that the explosive growth of the internet has been because it hasn't been held back by regulation and taxes. Can you throw a few minutes on that topic?
Yes. It goes back to the 1990s when Democrat President Bill Clinton and a Republican Congress passed a legislation that banned new taxes on the internet. This was in the late 1990s. And so this booming area was not weighed down by taxation and excessive regulation from the federal government. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it blossomed. But unfortunately, there's this attitude: why, if something's working, why leave it alone? So you've got a prospect of a huge number of internet taxes coming in, including the expiration in a matter of days of the ban on internet taxes. Harry Reid, who still controls the Senate till January, even though he got shellacked in the election, his party, they're quite content to let that ban expire. It's going to hurt all of us. And the Federal Communications Commission is now considering regulations that would do a lot of harm to the internet, and not to mention all the countries around the world like China and Russia that want to get their hands on the internet.
Absolutely, and that also dovetails into ICANN, the actual regulatory commission actually being moved out of the United States control to a foreign control. That also
exactly
precipitated a heck of a lot of this. But, I mean, just the growth in revenue, the growth in commerce and business on the internet, you're absolutely right. It couldn't be ignored by Congress, and it truly is. I mean, we are staunch advocates of separation of government regulation on the internet. Can you foresee any turnaround in this particular perspective, or are we pretty much saddled with the fact that we're going to be regulated? We're going to be the net neutrality concept is a huge negative in our book as well, because you can't force players to remain civil in this respect. It's the net is basically the best free market experiment that we've come across in decades, and for regulation to quench that. I just want to see if you have any hope on the horizon.
You hit on something that's critically important. Government knows what already exists, mm-hmm. and but they don't see the future. They can't. And they don't have a mechanism like the free market does, where entrepreneurs can try new things to see what works and what doesn't. So government will continue to do these things the same old way. And in terms of the internet, mm-hmm. to put the regulations in will just stifle innovation just by definition. You look at a country like India. When India got independence in the late 1940s, it put in a very socialistic, heavy-hand regulatory regime, mm-hmm. which is why the country stagnated for decades. Then in the early 90s, they started to open up the economy, but because high-tech came after this regulatory regime, it was not covered by it. High-tech in India blossomed.
Absolutely.
While the rest of the economy was stagnating, and India became a major global high-tech power.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think that free market is going. It's getting challenged, but it will ultimately win. And freedom of thought is absolutely going to win the day. It's just going to have to go through a number of trials.
Yeah. Well, I think we tried the ideology, right? We tried the ideology front for the last 6 years, and we've seen what happened. And the theory is all great, that everybody can live and pay taxes and everybody can get taken care of. But the reality is quite different, and that's that a tax placed on a large company is a tax that's placed on my company,
That's right.
and that hurts.
Pulling back around to the summit, Mr. Forbes, there's a number of speakers at this summit, and you're talking about innovation and technology. The Chicago event focused primarily on a new industrialization or a new industrial revolution tied to tech, and it's coming right here to India as well. Can you showcase a few of those individuals that will be speaking and maybe some of the topics as well?
Well, we have a number of panels that are discussing it. Starting with what we call Masters of Innovation, a fellow named John Nottingham,
yes,
who's
sir.
co-founder of Nottingham Spurk. What they do is they do industrial design, and that's critically important in this day and age. In terms of Steve Jobs showed the importance of that. Mm-hmm. And then we have a fellow named Gary Bernstein from Notre Dame, who is a co-founder of Indiana Integrated Circuits, which is doing what they call quilt packaging.
Yes, sir, I read that.
Assembly technology, which is a great breakthrough. One of our editors, Dan Bigman, will be interviewing him. And then in terms of ventures, in terms of how do you scale up, we've got somebody from Elevate Ventures, two people, discussing with people like Fritz French, who's from Calibrium, mm-hmm. Alos and Ventures, and Exact Target, the former head of that, Scott Dorsey, discussing how do you scale up. And then we have Angie Hicks of Angie's List. So this is sophisticated stuff, seemingly simple stuff. And then about financing, starting with Mark Kavami, mm-hmm. who his family is very much involved in venture capital. He has a company called Drive Capital, and we note that this panel is no Bucks, no Buck Rogers. In other words, you got to finance this stuff,
right?
And they're going to be on a panel talking about that. So whether it's traditional companies like Parker Hannifin or new companies, we're going to be hitting on that. And then obviously in Indiana, you cannot pass by without discussing pharmaceuticals, healthcare. Yep. So obviously Eli Lilly is involved, but also companies like MedImmune are involved, and Novartis. So it covers the gamut, and also agriculture. So it's a thing about innovation and technology. It's not just new stuff. It's taking traditional industries and reshaping them as well.
Absolutely.
Those are incredible. I got to throw some shout outs to that too. Elevate Ventures is I think probably half the clients that we work with, mm-hmm. They're helping fund and bring them to the forefront. So I have such respect for those guys.
It's a great corporation, it really is.
Yeah, they've been willing to take risk on great ideas where other people, kind of sat back. And Scott Dorsey, I had the pleasure of working for, and he actually hired me at Exact Target. But Scott Dorsey, Mr. Forbes, I think you're just going to love talking to Scott. Scott is the only CEO I know in the country that took a company from 3 people to $3 billion and never changed. He was the same person, the same culture, through the entire time. Just a fantastic guy. And then Angie's List is truly changing the city. If you get over there to visit them while you're in town, they have taken one of the worst, shabbiest, parts of town and are revitalizing it with murals and beautiful homes and everything else, and just doing some incredible work for the city. So
there's a give back mentality that is coming across a number of different heads of state of all these different organizations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so you're surrounded by some Indianapolis royalty there, sir.
Fantastic, and what it goes to show is in terms of revitalization, if you create an environment for innovation, people come in that no one's ever heard of and start to do things, and by golly, positive things happen.
You're absolutely right. Well, to wrap up, what are some of the upcoming events that you will be organizing to continue this initiative of Reinventing America?
Well, we're going to be we're in the throes now of discussing what we're going to be doing next year, mm-hmm. and we'll probably have 2 more coming in the following year. And we think that every 6 months, 8 months, this is something that is so rich in material.
Absolutely.
That we're going to be able to get into the weeds of things and names that, like Scott Dorsey, most people haven't heard of. They're not the traditional Valley names, but these are people who have done big things. everyone now knows Angie's List, but most people don't know where Angie came from.
Yeah, knocking door to door.
Yeah,
truly.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your organization's efforts to create this summit in Indianapolis. We certainly see a bright future for the Midwest in innovation and technology, and we see you heading the charge. And we want to thank you personally, sir, because that's fantastic. And we really don't see in our in the country that many leaders that can actually take on a personal charge like this and make it happen. And sir, you're fantastic for doing that. Do appreciate it.
Good reporting, good journalism is about seeing what others are overlooking. And when you have something this size, of this scope and this breadth, and traditional media is not aware of it.
For sure.
We found it like gold on the grass. Just couldn't resist.
Absolutely.
And for everybody looking for the event, you can just search for Forbes Reinventing America.
Correct.
And you can find a ton of information online about the past and upcoming. And then, of course, on the 13th, come on out there and see the team. So.
Absolutely. It's November 13th, a whole day at JW Marriott. And you can also follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Forbes, CEO, and subscribe to Forbes Magazine as well online and to pay attention to how they're leading the way for reinventing America. Again, thank you so much for your time, sir, and we'll hope to see you at the event.
Look forward to it. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Tom. Thanks, Doug. Take care.
Take care.